I'm Adrian, the cruise and travel guy, and if you've paid attention to the news this week, you'll see that the New South Wales state government has announced or proclaimed that they will be finding a third cruise terminal for Sydney. This sounds like great news, and I mean it is great news, but not when you just look back about a decade. I'll tell you why. The official media release from the New South Wales state government reads, "A panel of cruise and tourism industry experts has been established to work on identifying the preferred location for a potential new cruise terminal in New South Wales. While Sydney cruise terminals have not reached capacity for bookings yet, the panel will also investigate options for increased capacity at the overseas passenger terminal as plans progress to investigate options for a potential third cruise terminal." New South Wales Transport for Minister Joe Halen said, "New South Wales' next permanent cruise terminal will be a massive new piece of infrastructure and we have to get it right. That's why we've assembled the best people to find the best location so we can grow our cruise industry long into the future." And the panel is a solid one made up of representatives from cruise lines, the Port Authority and others. Among them are Joel Katz, the Managing Director of Clear Australasia, Serena Bratton of Ponant, Peter Little of P&O Cruises and Carnival Australia, Gavin Smith, VP and Managing Director in Australia and New Zealand of Royal Caribbean, and John McKenna of the Port Authority. This is excellent news, except if you rewind just 13 years back. That's because in 2011, Dr. Alan Hawke AC completed an independent review into enhanced access to Garden Island for cruise ship berthing. In that review, there were 5 options identified that would assist Sydney's growing need for greater cruise access. In reference to the review, Stephen Smith MP, then Minister for Defence, said, "A recent New South Wales government report has highlighted the increase in cruise ships visiting Sydney. The independent review will assess whether there is scope to enhance cruise ship access to Garden Island without adversely impacting on its priority role of supporting Navy maritime operations." Dr. Hawke completed a very thorough review, identifying 5 options in the process. He left no stone unturned. The first option identified was to disperse cruise ship services between the OPT, Adol Bay and Port Botany. Option 2 was a co-share arrangement where fleet-based berths 2 to 3 were available to cruise shipping on the proviso that Glebe Island and White Bay were made available to the Navy. Option 3 was a lease arrangement where fleet-based berths 2 to 5 would be made available for priority cruise ship use. This option would have required infrastructure enhancements to support both the cruise industry and Navy operations at Glebe Island. Option 4 was to lease fleet-based berths 1 to 5 to the cruise industry and develop a replacement wharf for the Navy on the eastern side of Garden Island. And option 5 was the disposal and transfer of fleet-based berths 1 to 5 and completely remove them from Sydney and relocate them to an unnamed port. Ultimately, the conclusions of the review were that the Navy operations in Sydney were completely incompatible with the cruise industry, and that if one had to win, it would be the Navy. Provision of the guaranteed shared access to existing berths at Garden Island sought by the cruise industry cannot be achieved without adversely impacting naval operations. However, the report did rank in order of feasibility, timeliness, and priority out of those 5 options, which would have been the top one. And that was to incorporate the OPT, Adol Bay and Port Botany. In his assessment, Dr. Hawke said that this option has the capacity to meet the full long-term cruise requirement for 3 berths east of the Sydney Harbour Bridge for large cruise ships and does not impact on Navy operations. More recently, there was discussion around Port Botany, but that was closer to the Yarra Bay side of things, and the local community, supported by local members for Parliament, were up in arms about it and effectively kiboshed it. So there is no chance of a port being developed closer to Yarra Bay. However, the area identified in the report from 2011 in Port Botany was quite away from Yarra Bay. In fact, it is an existing port facility that serves commercial services. Currently, it's run by Hutchison Ports, but at the time, I believe from what I've read that that area was available to be developed and at least co-shared between commercial shipping and the cruise industry. And Royal Caribbean were on board for that, Carnival Corporation were not. Based on what I can tell, it looks like that area of port botany has been developed and is no longer an option. I do suppose, going off the title of the media release, that a third cruise terminal for New South Wales may, just may, indicate that we will be exploring options outside of Sydney. But we'll have to wait and see. I've put this video together very quickly. It's taken me about 15 minutes of just reading things to get my thoughts out and make sure that I'm saying the correct thing. But I think in essence, what I'm trying to say is that although this is good news, I think it's just more political posturing. Coming on the back of Clear's announcement or media release yesterday about the incredible economic output of the cruise industry in this country, and in particular in New South Wales, of course the New South Wales state government wants to be looking like they're doing something and taking action, but I just don't buy it. The reality is there's really no other space. There's no new land in Sydney to use east of the bridge that would allow for a functional third cruise terminal. And as much respect as I have for the people that have been selected for this new investigation, for this new panel put together by the New South Wales state government, let's not ignore the magnitude of the people that contributed to the 2011 report that was clearly, at best, ignored. These included Anthony Albanese, the then Minister for Infrastructure and Transport, David Anderson, the Chief Executive Officer of Ports Australia, Grant Gilfillan, the then CEO of Sydney Ports Corporation, Paul Keating, former Prime Minister, John Lee, the then Chief Executive of Tourism and Transport Forum, Anne Sherry, CEO of Carnival Australia at the time, Gavin Smith made an appearance back then as well, and plenty of others. So this was a well-considered report with consultation across the board in terms of government and infrastructure and other stakeholders, including cruise lines and ports. I do wish to see a third cruise terminal option for Sydney, but quite frankly, I just don't see where it would go or how it would function because there is not enough space. It's not like they're going to create more space. That just won't happen. Not in my backyard is, of course, a huge element of this as well. It will always limit where a third cruise terminal could go for Sydney. So I really look forward to seeing what they come up with. Part of me does also believe that on the back of yesterday's news from Clear about the economic impact that cruise has on Australia and New South Wales, that this is a very quick and easy way for the New South Wales state government to say that they are doing something about it. Because at least they can always refer to the investigation that they have decided to conduct in the panel that they have put together. Most of us know that politics is a game of smoke and mirrors, and I think that this is really just part of that. The reason that I am a little bit more impassioned about it is because I've done quite a bit of research into it, and I know for a fact that there were options that were viable and were ignored. So let's see what happens this time. As I said, I just had a few minutes to put this video together, so if it's a bit rushed or all over the place, apologies. But if you enjoyed it, let me know. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and let me know what you think about all of this. It's a bit convoluted. It sounds like a really great thing, but then just, I don't know what the foundation is, so I would happily stand corrected. So let's see what happens and let's see what this panel finds. Of course, I'll stay on top of it. Make sure you subscribe. If you want to book a cruise, head to my website, thecruiseandtravelguy.com.au. That's the best way that you can support me and my work. And give me a follow on Facebook and Instagram at Cruise and Travel Guy. Thanks for watching and have a good weekend, and I'll see you soon.